So, how do great leaders actually spark creativity? Is it all about finding and nurturing those individual rock stars, or is it about building one big powerhouse team? Well, what if the answer is both, but maybe not in the way you'd think? In this explainer, we're going to break down some amazing research on how to truly enhance employee creativity.
Our guide for all this is a really fascinating study from the Journal of Organizational Behavior. See, instead of just talking about creativity in vague terms, these researchers tested a very specific model that looks at it from two different angles, the individual and the team. We're going to go straight to their findings and see what really works.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the big challenge that all leaders face. Then, we'll introduce this cool dual-focus solution and break down the two separate paths to getting more creative ideas. Then, we'll get to a really surprising dynamic where those paths cross. And we'll wrap it all up with some clear, actionable takeaways.
Let's start with the problem itself. Every leader knows they need creativity, coming up with new, useful ideas just to stay in the game. But actually making that happen, it's not so simple. It often feels like you have to make a tough choice about where to put your energy.
And that tension is right here. On one hand, you've got the fact that ideas come from people, from individuals, so it makes total sense to develop their unique skills, right? But then on the other hand, team creativity isn't just adding up what each person does, it's about collaboration, sharing knowledge. So if you push too hard on the individual side, you can end up with silos. But if you focus only on the team, you might accidentally smother that individual brilliance. It's a real balancing act.
So how do you solve this puzzle? Well, this research points to a really smart leadership style that actually manages to do both things at the same time. And the trick is treating your individuals and your team as two separate but equally important goals. It's called dual-focused transformational leadership. I know, that's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. It just means recognizing that what motivates one person isn't the same as what motivates a whole team. So it's a leadership style that customizes its approach, nurturing individual talent while also building this unified collective purpose for everyone.
So here's what that actually looks like. Individual-focused behaviors are really personal. We're talking about one-on-one coaching, giving someone a specific intellectual challenge, or setting high personal expectations. Now, team-focused behaviors are for the whole group, painting a compelling vision for everyone, being a role model for teamwork, and pushing for shared goals. The best leaders do both, but they know when to use which tool.
Okay, let's trace that first path to creativity. This one's all about unlocking the potential inside each person on your team.
The researchers found this really clear cause and effect chain. When a leader does those individual-focused things, like mentoring or challenging an employee, it directly pushes that person to work on developing their skills. And that bigger skill set, well, that becomes the fuel for them to generate more creative and novel ideas. So the key is, leadership actions spark skill development, and that development is what fuels individual creativity.
All right, now for path number 2. For this one, we're going to zoom out from the individual and look at how a leader can make the entire team more creative, as one single unit.
And what's cool is we see a very similar process here. When a leader focuses on the team by, say, communicating a shared vision, that helps create an environment where the team shares knowledge. This is where ideas and information and feedback just flow freely between everybody. That constant exchange of knowledge then becomes the engine that really boosts the whole team's ability to come up with creative solutions together.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, where those two paths we just talked about cross over. The research found something pretty nuanced and fascinating here. It turns out the team environment affects individual performance in a way you probably wouldn't expect.
So that brings us to a huge question. You'd think that a team where everyone is constantly sharing ideas is just good for everyone's individual creativity, right? But does it help the most skilled person on the team just as much as it helps someone who's still kind of learning the ropes?
And the answer is pretty mind-blowing. The study found that while, a knowledge-sharing environment is helpful for everybody, it gives the biggest creativity boost to the individuals with lower levels of skill. For those highly skilled people, their creativity actually thrived a bit more when they could just focus, without all the extra team input. It's a totally counterintuitive result.
And the researchers nail the explanation with this quote. Basically, a really active, knowledge-rich team environment acts like a support system. It can help make up for gaps in an individual's own skills by giving them access to information and different perspectives they need to be creative. But for the folks who already have those highly developed skills, well, the extra input from the team is still good, but it just doesn't give them that same big boost.
So what does all this mean for you if you're the one leading a team? Let's boil this all down into a few clear things you can actually do.
First, you've got to adopt that dual focus. Stop using a one-size-fits-all approach. Tailor your actions for individuals and for the team separately. Second, invest in skill development. Things like training and one-on-one mentoring are the most direct way to boost a person's creative horsepower. And third, actively build an environment of knowledge sharing. It's the engine for your team's creativity, and it's a critical safety net for those who are still growing their expertise.
At the end of the day, here's the bottom line. Enhancing creativity isn't a choice between focusing on the individual or the team. Great leaders get that they're playing two different games at the same time. They build creativity by strategically developing each person's talent, while at the same time weaving all those talented people into a single, united, and knowledge-rich team.